Hello and welcome. My name's Chris Cann, Head of Mining Journal Research. And with me, I have Hayden Locke, Chief Executive of Marimaca Copper. Hi, Hayden.
Hi, Chris.
Marimaca released a PEA on its namesake copper project in Chile last year. The resources were only oxide for that particular study at this stage, and the numbers were really impressive with an NPV of just over $520 million and an IRR of 33.5%. And with that also came out, or have been coming out, some exciting interpretations around the regional geology and maybe something larger at scale. Today, though, what we're looking at is just Chile, just a jurisdiction. And for us at Mining Journal, our investment risk index has given Chile an A-rated jurisdiction rating. But what we're interested in today, Hayden, is what it's like to practically try and develop an operation, what it's like practically on the ground there.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction. And actually, before we move on, I'll say that was based on a $3.15 a pound copper price, which has obviously changed quite a lot. I think I'm surprised as anyone as to where we are with the copper price. The project looks significantly better in today's world. Chile is an amazing location to be building a mining project, but I think like many mining jurisdictions, as an example, Australia, there's quite a bit of difference between different areas within the same country. So, in Australia, if you're in WA, fantastic mining jurisdiction, very pro-mining. But if you're in New South Wales, in the Hunter Valley, not so pro-mining. And I think that's quite similar in Chile. So depending on where you are, you will have a slightly different pathway in terms of developing these projects. So we're located in the Antofagasta region, which is the most prominent mining jurisdiction in Chile, and it's an absolutely amazing place to be. There are a lot of big mines up there. It's a very important part of the economy and the general community up there. And so our experience is it's a fantastic place to be developing a project. And we have certain additional benefits based on our location, which really put us much lower down the risk spectrum as it pertains to developing a mining project.
Okay, what are those?
Well, we don't have any local communities. We're not going to be using any fresh water. There's no real land usage up in the area that we're at. It's in a middle of the Atacama Desert, effectively. So flora and fauna biodiversity is much lower. None of this means that we're going to take a lower focus on developing our mine in a sustainable way, but it just means the opposition that you may experience is going to be significantly less.
Okay, but you are near Antofagasta, and a lot of that region very famous for copper production, but also almost equally famous for union disputes and labour disruption issues. What does that look like for you guys going forward? What's the environment at the moment in that respect?
Yeah, I think anywhere you go in the mining industry globally, there tends to be a fairly strong unionisation approach from the workforce, to protect themselves and their rights. And we don't have an issue with that. You're absolutely right. It's been an ongoing focus for the mining industry in Chile, as it has for any sort of more developing nation. That really, it's more the older and more mature assets that tend to have the bigger issues, where they've got a lot of legacy, a lot of time, a lot of water gone under the bridge, which makes it much more difficult from that unionisation perspective. The benefit we have is we're starting from scratch. So we don't even have a workforce really in terms of the scale to run this mine. And so we'll be able to set everything up as we would like to see it moving forward. Talk to me again in 25 years' time, and it may be slightly different, but as of right now, we don't see any issues on that front.
Okay, I mean, the same unions in theoretically will be covering your workforce that covers current operating workforces. You don't see any issues with some of those concerns leaking across to, as they might see it, just another site.
Yeah, there's always the potential for that, but we have the benefit of being able to engage early on those issues and make sure that we are addressing the issues before they become issues. And there's a lot of precedent in the Chilean mining industry on how to deal with this well. There's also precedent on how to deal with it badly, and we can look at all of those to help us guide us through those processes.
Okay, and you alluded to infrastructure, or the location at least, and the positioning of Marimaca. Our understanding is that there's been a lot of money put into green energy infrastructure in Chile, probably going back 15, 20 years, and I think funded in many respects by Antofagasta, the company. What kind of access do you have to that infrastructure? Can you plug straight in, or do you have to do something on a site level?
Well, the energy infrastructure up in that part of the world is really good. So there's a very good network of distribution cables, the poles and cables as we call them, which we will be able to tap into, assuming that there's capacity on them. Certainly, the main trunk lines there is more than enough capacity. But I think what you're referring to is, how can we take green electrons out of the network? I mean, there is a energy mix where we are. So there are coal-fired power plants, there are gas-fired power plants. And there's a lot of solar because obviously the Atacama Desert has a very high solar endowment. So there is one of the best things about the Chilean energy, regulatory framework is we are allowed to engage directly with any energy provider we want, and we can sign PPAs with those energy providers. So we can directly support renewable energy projects by having direct PPAs, and they would love to have a PPA with somebody that's a power purchase agreement with somebody like us as a base load energy consumer, because it provides them with a really safe and stable cash flow. So there's a lot of opportunity for us on that front, and we're examining all of those. In fact, we're about to engage a consultant to really provide us with a full framework of all the carbon abatement strategies that we can implement to our project before we start. So that means we're well ahead of the curve.
What kind of engagement have you had with investors on that green energy front, or just the decarbonisation front? As a new mine going forward, there's an opportunity there to do something that is really environmentally and climate friendly.
Exactly right. We haven't had that much engagement because as of right now, we're not a huge emitter. And so it's less of a focus, I think, for the investors that we have gotten in. But we certainly foresee that becoming one of the key issues that we will face with investors is how are we reporting on that and how are we managing that in the future? It's going to only become a bigger issue. And there's all sorts of knock-on economic issues that come with that as well. And so part of the things we're looking at is, well, how green is our copper? How green could it be? And the answer, at least as of right now, is we think we're going to be right down the end of the carbon emission curve per ton of copper, based on the information we have. And that's a fantastic place to be for the future as well.
Okay. And the last thing I wanted to cover off at the moment is potentially the elephant in the room. There's a constitutional review ongoing in Chile. I think it's looking to wind up fairly shortly. What kind of practical outcomes are you expecting from a development and then a mining perspective for the industry from that process?
Yeah, well, it's actually been voted on. So the change of they voted to push through the change of constitution. The change hasn't occurred yet. So that's the next process is a group of representatives of the people are going to get together and define the new constitution. And look, I think the answer is we don't know really what's going to come out of that. But what's clear is, like what happened 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago during the global financial crisis, there is certainly a focus on the people, on them seeing more of the wealth that is created in the country and seeing more of those benefits flow through to them as people. Really, I think the focus is on healthcare and on transport and just general cost of living, infrastructure, all of those sorts of things. The mining industry is very important, and so there will logically be some impact on it, and it creates some uncertainty. But at this stage, we're not foreseeing any significant changes. I think there has already been one change to the fiscal regime, which happened quite recently, where the corporate tax rate went up to 30%. So it's still relatively low, and that's in response to the money that's being spent on coronavirus and all of that sort of stuff. So there's always going to be changes, but I think Chile has a very strong recognition of just how important the mining industry is, and a lot of foreign investors in there, and they also appreciate instability is not helpful for foreign direct investment. So I don't think it's going to impact us too much, but we wait and see.
Hayden Locke, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.